heard by anybody on the line?
Madam Chair, as you know, this weekend we're doing a country to country concert for St. Jude's. And one of the things I had asked the electrical inspector, there's permit fees for generators and such to see if we can do a blanket fee. He told me I'd come and stop this meeting and ask for permission on it. It's either charge $150 per generator. Paul said he'd be willing to do one blanket fee to help save some money on it for the donation of St. Jude's. Like I said, I'm the second meeting to pass.
Advise you wasn't on the agenda. To be on the agenda, it's keep on any decision.
Oh, that's fine. I didn't know if I could do it. The agenda.
Is there anyone else for public comments? No, that's after the consent agenda. All right. No one else for public comments. All right. 3.1, the consent agenda. Warrants AP 2349. AP 2349S, AP 2349R, AP 2349, AP 2350S, AP 2350, PR 2324, PR 2325.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Hold on one second. Did you get a 2349 INS?
That was the first one.
Sorry, that was the first one, INS. Sorry, AP 2349 INS.
I still make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Sorry.
Roll call vote. Yes.
Devin Smith? Yes. Sean Hall?
Yes.
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 Okay, moving into old business 4.1. Public comments and input relative to events at the Young Men's Club. Before we started, I did just want to let you know that this is for anything that is not related to alcohol or the alcohol license or alcohol consumption. This is solely for any other concerns outside of that purview.
We told some people this was going to be at 6:30, so they may not be here. It doesn't say that here. At our last meeting, we said we would set it for 6:30.
For 6:30.
It's not.
It's not posted that way, but we said it verbally to you.
It's not. Okay, you have the ability to change the order of the agenda.
Okay. Do you think it would be a good wait until 6:30 for that?
Next year, I think so. People were told.
I think if anybody was told that.
Okay. No. Okay, so we will move on to new business 5.1 at 6:30 to approach for that. Our new business 5.1 DPW projects and grant updates. If Scott would like to come up here. Yes, sir.
You speak loud right there.
Okay, so we're doing 5.1, which is the DPW project and grant updates. Right now we have Scott McCarthy. Update us.
Just coming to give you an update about what we have going on, grants and projects that are starting to get underway. The first one, the Mount Warner Wells, water grant. So we're starting to go into phase 2 of the reactivation and design of a building down there and what needs to be done. Working with the current buildings, the current piping, what we can and cannot do. So that project is starting to get going now down at Mount Warner. The next one is we applied for an MVP grant for a culvert replacement and drainage upgrades at 136th Street. It's in the proximity of the Bala Farm. The culvert there is in very bad condition. We're looking at it through the MVP. I met with the state on that, and they like the grant, what we're applying for. And strangely enough, they asked us to make our scope a little bigger looking towards more of the origin of the problem, which is, more out towards Sam's and Route 9. So, looks pretty promising. Out of the gate with them, so they liked it. So we had support of the farmers and accepting there that all this impacts. So I'm pretty optimistic with that. And we're just waiting to hear from the state on that. The next one is the lead service line grant that we were able to get. It's mandated from the DEP that we have to evaluate all the water service lines in town, one of people's homes that they're not lead. And they're looking at going on now July 1st to start that project. Another one was the Route 47 bridge / culvert. I'll call it the Dwyer's Bridge as it's known in town. He applied for a grant under the small bridge program to see if we can get that fixed. We look like we have some work done, research prior with other directors. So we do have some legwork done on this already. And they thought with us having that done, we're gonna score a little bit better in the small bridge program. So it's just another one we're waiting to see how our application goes back. But we did submit for it to look at that. Here's a pretty exciting one. Flat grant that we had some trouble with the Moody Bridge Road. Myself and Carolyn were involved with the several people on the flat, and we in a pretty deep conversation of what we can do to kind of get our money back from the way the grant was orchestrated from the beginning. And we were able to get back in the program with existing funds that were turned back in. So we were approved to do some work on Moody Bridge Road, and we're just waiting for the official grant to be awarded. And myself and Carol have been talking about a funding source for the match, because there is a match in this that we have to provide some money for. And we've been on that pretty steadily to have that lined up. So we're ready to go on that.
Scott, can I just ask a question on that? I know in the past, there was some conversation about whether or not that match had to be monetary or if it could be in the form of contributed labor from the DPW.
This is a monetary match.
Okay, so they're clear on that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just waiting for the official award, but we did get notification from the flat people that we were awarded. So pretty exciting news. I know we talked about at the town meeting, we were given some money to paint our water tanks. So we were looking at that project, and it's a lot of money to paint our steel water tanks. And as we were looking at this project, the costs associated with painting them in the life of the tanks, they're starting to kind of meet their life expectancy a little bit for a steel tank. So we decided to look at, cost analysis of painting versus replacement. We had a meeting a little bit ago. Randy was on it with Jane, and it's something that we really should look at for long term of Hadley. I don't know if it's worth throwing millions of dollars in at a paint job that's only going to last 10, 15 years, and we'll be back at the drawing board again. At that point, they probably would have to be replaced. There's a life expectancy of that. So we're currently working with Ty and Bond on some information on that to see what's going to be the best for our water system long term. We're also working with Ty and Bond on a sewer assessment management grant. We just finalized the grant paperwork and our funding source. The town meeting, we asked for our part of the match, but the way the grant is given, to pay or their fee, and then we get reimbursed. So Carolyn, myself, and Linda looked at the SWORD budget, we're able to come up with a funding source so we can get that going without coming back to town meeting. So that'll be underway. And another project that's currently underway, the Hadley and Amherst working together for sort of conjunction, turning the Mill Valley pump station the other way and pumping it to Amherst. Amherst was awarded a grant to look at that for us, and that project is underway. They're starting to do some survey of the land and analysis of our current pump station, if the pumps are big enough to pump all that distance and et cetera. So that is underway with the help of Amherst. And that's all I have for you on grants, and thank you everyone. I don't know if you have any questions.
I had a question on the Mill Valley one. That's just to pump sewage, right? Just
Yes,
to
yeah,
send it.
yeah. It would help our current plant considerably because it's starting to hit the 75% capacity range, which we'd have to do a lot of upgrades there. So with doing this, sending that to Amherst, that's going to alleviate a lot of our flow sewage.
And I guess the question I was curious about, does that affect any new building that could or could not happen on Mill Valley? Any new housing that wouldn't tie into it, right?
No,
Okay.
the sewer on Mill Valley goes from Route 9 to the pump station, and that's it. The other side does not have it. And I'm not sure what's in APR there, and I believe a good portion of that is.
Okay.
So I don't think it's gonna have any.
Okay. Yeah. In housing. Okay. So nobody would be tying into it to
No,
add
it's
to.
it's a force for me. You couldn't tie into it anyway. It's a picture line.
Okay. Okay. Question now?
I don't have a question. I want to thank you for the paving and the white lines on Rocky Hill and Bay Road. Makes driving much easier. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, appreciate that. Unfortunately, I know we talked about this and kind of. It wasn't the greatest, but I think we made it through, and the line striping company, got on them right away. They're tough to get, and they were able to get us in, and I think it came out good. We have some calls from people that like it, say it's nice and smooth and et cetera. So I think the majority of the residents are happy. And lead water piping. How's that going to work? What's the process? So the records that we have, we'll submit to them, knowing that certain areas of pipe, we know by experience of digging it up, whatever, that, the service lines are direct, into the AC pipe or what have you, by age. Some areas where it's older cast iron pipe is the areas that are in question. And our records of that area are not very good. So we're gonna have to try to get into some homes and verify what's coming into the houses. If it's copper tubing or galvanized, steel pipe, what have you. But they're still up in the air about the lead gooseneck. I don't know if you're familiar with that, or it transitioned from a steel pipe to copper tubing or whatever. There is still a little chunk of lead in some of these areas, and they're gonna deem that no good, or it's okay, but it's such a little piece that still hasn't been clarified. But we do have some of that. We are working on replacing them, but like I said, our records are not the greatest. We're going through more experience thing, knowing the age of the home, the age of the plant, etc. But it's a pretty in-depth thing. I don't know, 5-6 years ago, we did a little bit of work on that. We got into, there were the guys to a few homes and re-examined some connections into the homes. But once this gets going, I'm sure there's going to be some letters sent out to people to inspect their water pipes if you can, and you can call into us that or take a picture or whatever. There's going to be definitely some outreach. I'll send them. You see appointments for us to go to people's homes that aren't able to do that. But it's a pretty tough project just because their records are black all. Thank you.
Anything else?
So you've got a lot going on, so thanks for keeping us and the public updated. Appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Like I said, a lot of it's just kind of getting off the ground. So as time goes on, I'll be glad to update you again where we stand.
Thank you.
And then you might as well just stay right there. Because we're also going to talk about your concerns about private parking on the commons.
Can we ask Canada or Chief to join me for this? So I placed the Alex picture. He can bring for you.
Doing it right now.
We've been noticed, or I've been noticing a lot more parking of the on the common and use of it. I guess and not. I don't know, the greatest uses. So.
You wait that long to mow the grass, huh?
I just wanted to bring it to your attention that, and I've been talking to the chief and the lieutenant about it, of, you know, what we should do or shouldn't. There is a bylaw of the town, you know, talking about the common and things. I don't know. I think that we should really move towards, it's a town sanction of that. I mean, it's just not made for, you know, your delivery of hay getting dropped in the common and go taking your tractor and moving it and, you know.
It's not your front yard. It's not your front yard. It's town property.
Can you, sorry, can you explain what the pictures represent other than?
Yeah, totally.
The hay and.
Yeah, those are, I can't remember the farm there, you know, remember it? No. Yeah, there's a farm there and it's tough to get in and out of, et cetera. So they had a delivery around bales of hay and they were just dropped in the common for him to go get them at his leisure. Just push them off the truck onto the common. And obviously, most of the parking is cars from that farm. There's really big park on the common. They go do their business there, and then obviously there was a truck from the springtime. I think it was fertilizer and stuff just coming across the common to go from one side to the other. This.
And I just, from a parking standpoint, so if there were, assuming those are farm workers' vehicles, is there any reason why they couldn't parallel park along West Street? I mean,
No, it's a public way. I can, or on the side of the road, as long as there's room for emergency vehicles to pass. There's only one section of the common, to my knowledge, that has been posted as no parking. It's that section that was damaged. So, you know, you have that section posted as no parking. It's not, it's that, you know, there's a very, very old bylaw that is still in place about utilization of the common for those types of issues. We have never enforced it. Matter of fact, I didn't even know it existed until Scott found it. And he's just finding it difficult to get the job done and mow the grass and everything with big ruts and things like that in the common. So he, you know, brought it to us and we thought it might make sense to put in front of you to at least take it under advisement and think about it a little bit.
So it
Just
sounds,
decide whether or not you want to not allow this or whether or not you want, you know, full use of the common.
so it sounds to me like your concerns come from commercial vehicles rather than the occasional family that has a party.
The people that go there at lunchtime and you park your car and enjoy the common and the picnic table and the shade of the tree, whatever, those aren't the people that we're looking at. It's the commercial vehicles, you know, the overflow of parking from the farms, or when the other farm across the other side of the street comes into picking season. In the morning times, it's always an influx of cars on the other side.
right.
It's definitely the commercial side of this.
So maybe we need to consider some kind of a non-commercial use of the common unless by permit.
Well, it kind of brings up an issue of, again, the asparagus festival. I've had some comments from residents about how we allowed them to park on the common when it was wet. And it kind of damaged that end of the property north on the common. And they're concerned about that they think that venues should have an alternative to their parking and not allowed to park on the common with all those vehicles for damage control and stuff of the common, which I think is a good thought. And I think we've been round and round on this for a good number of times, that we thought that we would have some control over that they would ask to use the, the school parking lot or the church parking lot or something of that nature, so that we don't ruin the common. But again, it depends on the weather, and I think that should be type of a stipulation of when we do rent out the common to certain groups.
We ask that you like speak to the farmer and just ask them to park on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that we can deal with in that manner, but, what it comes down to is that it's not just on the loans.
I mean, heck, they're not even parking nice. Like,
One of those.
Lord.
A bunch of, grades and
Yeah.
things I'm talking about. It's not really vehicle.
Well, like like Chief Mason said, maybe the best thing for us to do is take it under advisement. And then maybe just talk to Carolyn about a path forward. Maybe it's a matter of having whatever Scott found in the archives, having it updated to address the different types of use. Because again, I agree, plenty of times I see people who park their cars and they're playing with their dogs on West Street, and it's a common, that's what it's for. But it's being, abused to a point for other reasons. We probably should have a policy prohibiting that, so that there needs to be something that you can enforce. Just say, get your vehicle on, right? So is that something we could do? Just take it under advisement for the time being?
We got a copy of that bylaw.
I mean, if you find significant damage, then
Yeah, just so you know how old it is, the first three types of vehicles that are listed are wagon, carriage, and.
A horse?
did they remove that bylaw? You can't tie your horse to a tree on the commons. That is the bylaw. Okay. All right.
So thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah.
And like, just the problem is just seems to be moving from the, I'll call it the S-line corridor, just further down.
Can we recognize non-board members for discussion on topics? Can we recognize non-board members on discussion for topics?
To you.
I would do it.
Want to do it? All right.
Yeah, I got a question. Whose vehicle, trucks, hay, and whatever is parked on it, who owns them? It's a mystery or what? We'll be looking at to put the picture on the street.
So it's still.
And they didn't follow up whose vehicle?
I'm guessing they were mowing the common, so we got staring for the pictures.
And since there's no thing that we can do to enforce it, you speak up, what? Since there's no enforcement mechanism for using the common at the moment, that's why they brought it here, so we can figure out what to do. We should find out, just talk to the people, see if they have parking elsewhere, vehicle elsewhere. And that's what,
I just suggested that we should start there, but.
house rolling around in that common. All right, moving on.
Next, all right, it's almost 6:30.
We'll ask your please.
can we think we can get through the 5.3 crosswalk? Want to do that?
Yeah, so when we repaved, Bay Road, there was a crosswalk at the intersection of Bay Road and Middle Street. It kind of just went nowhere across the street there. So when we paved the road, at that point, we chose not to put it back in. There were a couple of reasons. It's like a crosswalk to nowhere, according to the MUTCD standards, like a crosswalk's supposed to be at where you're yielding or stopping, etc. Just not kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So I was talking to the chief about this and whatever, and we did a little bit of research that there's a lot of things that go along with having a crosswalk like that where there's no down or anything. It's just it's a 40-mile-an-hour zone there, and there's some question of the legalities of that crossing, if it should be there or not. I reached out to Mass DOT, and they really didn't want to comment on it because it's not their road. We're just kind of looking for guidance. So just doing a little bit of legwork on this. I reached out to an engineering firm. It's going to be $3,000. Just have them come out and kind of give a little bit of guidance if this could happen or shouldn't, or etc. And just looking at the project a little bit further, minimally, if you put signage there, and you put ADA mats on and for a sidewalk on the other side, kind of leading it back to Middle Street, heading towards the DPW side, that's over $15,000 for that. Signage, probably 700, painting a sidewalk in there, 600.
And Scott, just for clarity, so we're talking about that where the blinking light is at the end of Middle Street,
Yeah.
crossing over to the Middle Street extension. if you will.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Who even walks there?
Can I interject there for a minute? That there was originally a bus stop there that students from that corner house did go over and catch a bus there. But there are people from South Middle Street that cross Bay Road to get to the other side of Middle Street to walk. And they're either walking their dog or they're walking themselves to go to the bike path or do something like that. So I think that's how it all originated back in the day when there was a crosswalk there. And that's why for their safety, it was put in there so that if they stood there, people would see the crosswalk and let them cross over.
Yeah, a resident reached out about putting it back in. Just myself and I believe the chief, we have some concerns about putting that back the way it is now, and that we may have some liability there that's not improper crossing.
I would love to say do a feasibility study, but I think that's going to cost more than it's worth.
Yeah,
I just think for the safety of the people that live on South Middle Street, when they're trying to cross Bay Road, that it would be nice for them to at least be able to, hey, I'm at the crosswalk and I want to get to the other side, how that goes there some days. So I know it's a dangerous intersection, but it's something that we really need to take a look at.
Yeah, it's fine. The issue is not a choice. The issue is not putting the crosswalk back in. The issue is complying with whatever the regulations are to make sure that it's safe enough to put it on a street that people are driving 40 miles an hour. So,
Well, there are also other,
just throw it right back in there and not.
But actually, that's a 35-mile-an-hour zone, and it doesn't change to 40 till it gets to the other side by on the other side of Middle Street. So the other side of Middle Street, there's a sign there that's posted 40. But if you look at the posted sign on speed limit on the other side, it's 35. So it quickly goes from 35 to 40, and then you go down and you get past Bay Road and it goes to 45 there. So we got 3 different speed limits on Bay Road at that point.
Right, so if you're heading eastbound, on that road, you're going 45 miles an hour. The speed limit's 45 miles per hour. So you're probably doing 50. And then you hit that intersection where that crosswalk is, and you don't really have enough time to slow down. So that's the issue. It's not just painting it back in. They're probably going to require signage lights or something, and that's what the engineering.
So maybe this might, I mean, there are other places in town where people have requested crosswalks as well. And I'm wondering if maybe we need to take a look at all of those and come up with a plan and not just do this as a one-off, because I know people have requested crosswalks, from one side of Middle going over to the Alexandra Dawson North Lane. I'm sure you get other requests, Scott.
Yeah, and it's not the point of not doing it. It's the point of doing it correctly.
Right. Yeah.
But that comes with a cost.
So the rules must be the same for all in terms of you have to have sidewalks on both sides, or you have to have certain signage. So if we gather all that information and then can look at each individual site with those things in mind, I think that makes sense. So let's do that.
Yeah, I'll come together with the chief and the lieutenant and look at other areas and, get an assessment of everything at once.
That's great.
No, but.
Thank you.
Should.
Yeah.
Shoot, Scott, an email.
Yeah, I don't know either of those areas.
I think Susan had her hand up, and then we'll just quickly, Susan, then we'll move into the appointment.
Back down.
Oh, she's still there, yeah.
Only because my comment was going to be that you need sidewalks on both sides, standard, and it's a standard of care. So, yeah, if the folks are going to take a look at all of that, that's great.
Okay. Thank you. It's a lot of money for a dead end road.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go back to our old business, the public comment and input relative to events at the Young Men's Club. Again, I know there's a lot of new faces in here since the first time we talked about this, but if you were going to come up for public comment, 1, try to limit it to 3 minutes if you can. 2, before you begin speaking, please come and sit up here. I'll call on you to do so. And then 3, this is solely for any complaints, comments, suggestions, or input outside of the purview of the liquor license, liquor sales, and liquor consumption.
And they need to introduce.
Can you please introduce yourself? But you don't have to give your address, because I don't need to know where you live. Neither does everyone else. So if you're here for public comments, please raise your hand. If you're on the line, please select the hand raising button on Zoom. Yes, please come forward. This isn't about me. This is about public comments for anyone else that needs to speak.
I'll break the ice.
You want to break the ice? You're welcome to.
For the audience and the select board, my name is Frank Quadro. I live on East Street. I'm here because the events at the Young Men's Club have gotten too big for the impact of members. I think there are 5 real parts to the complaint. I know you folks are dealing with the alcohol, but there's noise, event size, crash, and overnight residence that's happening when they have these large events. And understand that the Young Men's Club has said that the grass is greener, we will be back, but we also experienced very similar issues with the UMass events, which are held both in the spring and the fall. Now, I have sent the board a letter. I'll bypass the alcohol issue because you've taken that under advisement. Noise, the town of Hadley Works in association with the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards. And acceptable noise levels between 7 and 6 is 60 decibels. And after 6 o'clock, 50 decibels. It's the Grass is Greener and the UMass concerts. My residents, we were registering over 90 decibels. The windows are rattling. I've spoken with people up and down the streets that say that the floors are bouncing, the chandeliers are rocking. We have called the police relative to asking for it to be toned down. The response the police gave us personally, my wife and I, was that there was an event schedule, which I thought was a poor response. I would have expected the police to go to the event and ask them to turn down the volume. I guess there were other people in town that select board members and the police department to come forward. I will let them speak to that event. But the noise is too loud. You can't have an event in a residential neighborhood for 10 hours straight for multiple days where it's boom, 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 boom. I ask that you please enforce the noise ordinance. The police department is your party by the town bylaw. The police is supposed to enforce that. If they're not enforcing it, they work for you. I'm coming to you and saying they fell short on these events. You need to reel in necessary. First, you need to reel in the event, tone it down. And number two, you have to give the police department the authority to do what they've been asked to do.
All right. Thank you.
Event sizes, in 1988, I know I'm probably running more than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get you started here. In 1988, the Board of Appeals afforded the club the opportunity to expand from just a recreational social club to also have weddings, banquets, political events, weddings, small events. These events, in my opinion, would be in the neighborhood of maybe 150 to 200 people. The events that we're seeing with the Grass is Greener and UMass is the participants are being bused to the site. They're also taking Ubers. They're also parking remotely. They park on some of the side streets and walk up and down the streets. This is, number one, it's a liability to the town because you've got all these pedestrians and heavy traffic. And number two, when the event closes, these people exit, and if they've taken an Uber, they use your house address as a pickup point. Because there are probably 50 or 60 people that are all saying 138 Young Men's. So there's confusion, and then adds to the traffic. Once again, I'd like you to rein this in accordance with the Board of Appeals, 1988. So we're not seeing events of 1,500, 2,000 people, but maybe 200 people. And that would also allow them to park on the site because the numbers are significantly lower. With these large events and the traffic up and down the street, we have the discarding of trash. Especially with the UMass crowd. They walk down the street, they've got a container they no longer want, whether it's empty or full, or it's in their yard or in the bushes. Same with if they're waiting for an Uber, they're relieving themselves in your front yard. That's unacceptable. These events should not be that size. And then the grass is greener where there was overnight residence on the site. This is a residential neighborhood. There are children across the street. We don't want the element of unknown in the neighborhood after hours. That's only being reasonable. So my thrust is that you for the club, their club license, and what has been approved by the Board of Appeals in 1988.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Next. Tim? Come on up.
Yeah, two. And after arm wrestle.
Oh, I'm Mike Duffy. I reside at 128 Bay Road, sadly. I'm a direct abutter to the Young Men's Club. My property starts just south of the Young Men's Club. We have farmland and my house, which is limited to the Young Men's Club. And if you go back in history, and look at how this Young Men's Club started and where it was placed, it'd be questionable if it didn't get to the level of improvement that they have now. But it's gotten done. I'm asking the board is that the Young Men's Club be held for the 1988 agreement. And that was an expansion first agreement to have events that were larger and more variety of events compared to what they had originally agreed to. But then in these increased size events were allowed. And in that agreement, they said that they would maintain nothing beyond. So I'm asking the board, goals that the events be limited in size, so within the pavilion, not outside, having music outside. To have this kind of event in the middle of residential sections, and it's like pretty friendly, you know what that look like. No, it's far exceeds what they originally agreed to. And I think it's only reasonable if the residents not have a problem with that. Maybe it's because of the location of my house, maybe seen some of these things, but you know, they move origin. But the noise is definitely there. You know, I can feel the noise, never mind hearing. The grass is really there. So, you know, I think that's reasonable. These events be done. Absolutely. It's been a long time. Yeah, we always why the best believe it really wasn't that up top. So it's what it is to work.
Thank you.
Jim Nyhart, I live at 16 Coaster Drive, which is very close to the government restaurant. What has been stated already is so true. The noise is unbearable, especially during the UMass months. The house is shaking, the chandelier is shaking. Pictures are coming off the wall. You sit in your couch trying to watch TV and you feel the vibrations. It's not just through your ears. This sound, these sound systems are huge. And yes, I know that Young Men's Club personnel have tried to deal with the sound. They have changed the direction of everything. But again, the noise is still going in some direction to somebody else. I really emphasize, like the other two gentlemen said, please look at the second paragraph of the 1988 appeals, because it's very specific. Yes, the 1988 hearing was set because they were in violation of the existing agreement. And yes, they were having the parties and everything else, and it was agreed to that they can. But it's very specific on the words that it says that the current non-existing use is what is agreed upon. What is happening now is way beyond what we've experienced in the past. And again, I mean, I've lived in my house for 45 years. I have never had a problem, even though I've been one. The parties that they've had, the weddings and everything else, they're confined to the pavilion where everybody agreed to back in 1988. That's where it was going to stay. But it has grown so much. The noise level is excruciating for the neighborhoods. We're not trying to shut them down. We just need our peace in our neighborhood. These multi-day things should stop. It is not what this agreement was about. Please help us enjoy our lives in our homes. And that's all we're asking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Right? Never done this before. I'm Roland. So. I mean, first of all, I have no problem with the amendments. Can you speak a little louder?
Get closer to the microphone, Rhonda.
First of all, I have no problem with the amendments or
Oh, the mic is for those online so they can hear her.
You're gonna have to yell as best you can.
I feel it. I have no problem with the amendments club. I have no problem with the members of the amendments club. Like, this is like not about that as an issue. It really is about the parties that are happening in the back of the amendments club. My house backs up to the back of their activity. So we hear all the parties even before. But as the people are saying, I mean, it really is literally where we're in our house. And I feel the vibration in my body. You know, our windows are shaking. And just as the Men's Club has every right to exist and do what it's doing, I also have a right as a Hadley resident to be able to be in my house and on my back porch or in my yard, and to be able to be comfortable, to be able to have people over and have conversations. That there's no reason why something should be at a decibel that it is. And it's I guess it's unclear to me, you know, why it is that things are so big. You know, certainly the UMass parties happened before the pandemic. I imagine that after the pandemic, a lot of businesses are pivoting and trying to figure out how to, make ends meet. I'm sure that these parties bring in enormous resources, and I imagine that's why the Men's Club must feel so committed to them, knowing that it's respective to the neighborhood. But I guess it is the select board that has the say in what happens. So I'm asking you to please consider not just the Men's Club, but also all of the neighbors that are around the Men's Club. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Tina Baronis. I'm married to Peter Navarro. I just have a couple questions. I want to say that the last event, it was put on Facebook from one select woman that we should buy beer clubs in order to live or do, which I think is completely unacceptable. For one from them. So when people come onto our property, their property, who is liable if somebody gets hurt? The young man's home, because they do all the time. We've already trying to make that not happen, but it does. So who's liable? Navalas? Who's liable for that? Teenage parties have to stand out there and make sure that nobody goes into that ditch, because the two people almost went, and they probably would have died.
And I sat out there for 2 hours. My Ubers were trying to pick them up, and there were no buses. I know the driveway. It's a business. Ubers are coming in now, turning around in the hay fields, turning around the potato fields. We have to kick them out. They're never very nice. But it has to be open for them to do business. Trash on the lawn. Constantly picking up trash on the lawn. And again, I know the Young Men's Club does a lot of good things for people, but we live right next door. So there are these certain things that we just want under control. Burning out after the car shows. Everyone. Does it have to happen? Yeah, you did that, I didn't rest. Peter went over one day and just said, can you please turn the music down? Can you please not turn the music down? Nope, loud ordinance till 10 p.m. It's just like the nice thing to do, not the wrong thing to do.
Thank you.
Oh, boy.
My name is Judy Elson. I've been athletes for 25 years. I've been involved with anything. So many students. I really appreciate the place that really love me, love the invest. Really respond. I really love the Young Men's Club. I really do. I love what they do there. I love that they do things that are very happy. I teach big happily, women happily, dog big happily, shopping happily. I really support really is. And I do my best to be a law-abiding citizen. So there's a law, such as a nuisance law. And a neighbor comes over because I'm playing with my rock band in the driveway during COVID. We'll turn it down. All they have to do is ask. So my question is, because I don't need to repeat all this anecdotal things, what it says. And we have to leave our house, leave your state house. When it's the house is shaking and it's, God forbid, you might have a heart problem, but I want to know what is the correct course to take when we wanted to say, hey, the music has to be lowered. I want to know what will happen. So it does. Because with great appreciation to the police, the reason I'm here tonight, so you guys told me, I'm told to come to here. So here I am, and thank you for inviting. I really appreciate it. And everything you guys do, we're present to you all the time. They appreciate the work. Thank you.
Anybody else for comments, concerns? Okay, come on up.
I'm John Michkowski, before Sunrise Drive. I've been working with the Young Men's Club in the town for 30, 40 years. The Young Men's Club have done things for this community, ball fields, the fiction derbies and everything else, where a lot of them I volunteered, offered my friend Jack, the ball fields, to everything. It costs money to maintain that ball field, costs money for the scholarships. And I hear all these people complain, what the hell are they doing for the town? Besides complaining. Everybody's gonna complain. There's maybe 3 events that they have there. And they can't tolerate that. Do they want the business to go out of business? After COVID, businesses all over the state and the country closed their doors. Let's get more people complaining, not helping and doing things, do something positive. And that's all they are, is negative. And I'm really fed up with that. These people don't want to do nothing for the community. They don't want to serve on nothing. That's all they want to do is bitch about everything. And that is full of crap, really is. They're complaining, they're running a bar here without a license, but that's okay. Police don't do nothing about it. Just check your side. Did you say?
Keep it down, gentlemen. Do the.
But that's all right, they can complain, but they don't complain about them. I wouldn't say nothing to them if they didn't see, but they did, they have representatives there, because there are a bunch of cowards sitting there, they couldn't stand. But that's okay. I want this board to look at what they're doing for this community, the good. Everything, even you selected, everything you do is not good. I got a big list that marks what bad things you did, what costly things you did. You guys can't work together? You really need to start thinking about it, and these neighbors over here. I guess that's about it.
Thank you.
Anybody else with me? Anybody with their hand up, Alex?
Anyone on the line with their hand up? Anybody else present that would like to make a comment, statement, express concern, anything? I'm sorry, I'm usually not quiet. I'm sorry, I'm so aggressive at work all day, and then I come here and I have to be an adult and a lady or something. Is there anyone else here that would like to make a comment, concern, questions? Anything? Anyone on the line? No.
Just write in comment and question, please. Is that acceptable?
You can speak if you'd like.
Let's see if she wants.
Wow, you're a very lovely man, I'm sure. But we're talking about something right now that affects neighbors very close to the elements.
Are you bashful of saying to the public?
I'm not bashful.
Well, you can, no, come on. If you're going to speak, come on forward. It's all right.
Right. Yeah. So my name is Amy Brady. I live on East Street. I have no issues with Young Men's Club. We go to cruise night on Monday night. I do enjoy it. The music's great. Yes, the cars peel out on Monday night. I almost got hit by a car. Someone almost hit. I don't like that. You know, the events that they have there are great. I've gone to weddings there. I've gone to engagement parties there. The pavilion is lovely. And people seem nice. The last couple of years of concerts have been excessive and loud. And we do live there. We live right near Nimbala, who are great people, they're great neighbors. And I understand their position because they live right next door and the music has been unbelievably loud the last 2 years. The UMass students with the buses, they do litter and they do speed, or they walk and, relieve themselves on people's lawns. I know I've heard stories from other people, not just the people that are here this evening. So I know that is the case, that other people have seen. The speeding on the street is excessive and awful. And I fear for the people who live on the street. I fear for the animals that people have. And the noise. I mean, the last couple of times, the noise has really been bad. And believe me, I love a live concert. I love live music. I just went to one in Look Park on Saturday where there were tons of people, but it's a park and a place that has parking, that has the ability to hold a concert with 1,000 people. That's all that I think we're all trying to make a point about. And for us that live on the actual street, it kind of sucks. when there are concerts, and yes, it's only 10 hours or it's only 5 hours, but it's the repercussions afterwards. It's being outside and having to pick up trash in the yard or having to, yell at someone for speeding or whatever the case may be. So there is the problem for us. And if we're sitting out in the backyard, the last time, I don't know, it was almost like the music, the stage was pointing at Nubella's house and it was bouncing off the barns and it was reverberating to the next door neighbor to me and the other guy on the other side. And it was like we were in the stage. It was like we were on that clamshell stage listening to it. And it was just a little bit excessive. So that's all I have to say. I don't know anything about the laws or what it was like because I've only been here for 5 years. So this is all new to me. And as far as the town and doing something for the town, I'm doing something right now because I'm here talking about something that is bothersome to me. I have nothing against the Young Men's Club. Again, I go on Monday nights, we walk over, it's enjoyable. I don't like when people do certain things. And that's what I have to say. And I love my neighbors, by the way. And on the other side as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you guys for what you do. And thank you guys over there for what you do. Because you do go on my street every now and again and try to stop speeding. I appreciate it.
Good evening. So my name is Aaron Tudrin. And one of the lucky few in Hadley that my whole life's been in Hadley. Went to school, Long Island in New York. And then I just moved back from college from Maryland. And having been away from Hadley, I think with all the issues that are brought to light, people have forgotten what makes Hadley Hadley. I agree with Big Connie, and people just love to complain these days. The Young Men's Club does so much for the community. Kids get to further their education thanks to the Young Men's Club through the scholarships. And like I've seen so many places. I've lived in a lot of different areas. And I think people bring those ideas to Hadley from cities and want to implement them. And that's causing us to lose what makes Hadley special, because Hadley is a special place and a special town. There are very few towns like this across America. I mean, I guess an example of like the Young Men's Club being a part of the community is when the Hopkins baseball team lost and they in the state championship and they wanted a place to go and play wiffle ball, and the Young Men's Club opened their arms and said, yep, you guys can come here. And so I guess just like it's a couple nights a year. It's not New York City. I've been there. It's New York's way louder. And yes, like everyone deserves their piece, but like there are like we can't just always have to be this little farm town. Like we should welcome other people into it and into the community. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Thanks. Anybody else? Does anyone on the select board want to say anything? Joyce?
Yeah, I just want to say that we don't have a bylaw or a bylaw for noises from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. And that has been forever, even when we snowmobiled back in the day when I did have a snowmobile and I snowmobiled. But everybody runs their snowmobiles past 10 o'clock at night. I've got people going across my lawn at 10 or 11, 12 o'clock sometimes, going home from heading up the mountain, coming down from the mountain and going across town. I mean, So they were part of the bylaw. I think the only ones exempt from the bylaw are the farmers when they get out in the fields at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning. But we don't have a really set time on the bylaw. 10 o'clock is the cutoff for music, and I think from what I understand, the Young Men's Club has always kept their 10 o'clock cutoff in the pavilion area or in the events that they've had. So the music has always been cut off at 10 o'clock. And I think the decimal that Mr. Quadro brought up, we don't have any of that part of our bylaw, but I guess if he's saying it's part of the state thing, then the select board certainly will maybe have to take a look at that. And I'm just bringing that forward for, I'm not sure if, I guess that remains in the Board of Health that would do that. So I guess that's all I have to say. And I think that, I think we should all try to work together to do something to make it all feasible for people. Everybody, I think in the whole town of Hadley, at some point or another, even all that spoke tonight, has gone to functions at the Young Men's Club and has enjoyed the pavilion, have gone to different affairs and parties and different things of that nature. So, and if anybody is there that didn't speak, I know you all been at some point in time in your life, whether it be a graduation party or some other event. So, I think in supporting them in whichever way we can and in working with them, I think is going to behoove everybody that was involved and for even those that spoke tonight. So, 3 or 4 events a year, seeing what we can do, making sure that there is good communication between the Young Men's Club and the police and the fire and Board of Health has always been, but I think, we need to keep them all on board for any events that are coming up. And I just would like to see us move in that direction, no matter which way we go. And that's what I have to say on their licensing of the club. So we can take it from there and do whatever.
So just a point of clarification, Joyce, I think it's unreasonable noise is prohibited 24/7. But so my understanding, I believe that we were going to hear input from the community this evening, which we have, and then take these comments under advisement for further discussion. So I'd like to suggest that we do so.
Thank you. Oh,
Thank you all for coming.
oh, yeah. If you're gonna speak, yeah, come. If it wasn't for the 11th hour, nothing would get done.
The name of the game. I'll keep it really brief. Tom Reeder, Bacon Wilson, Anderson, on behalf of the Young Men's Club. We're here, we're listening. Thanks. We've heard everything that was said. We just wanted to acknowledge what all the neighbors said. Got some folks from the YMC with me, and so I've taken tons of notes. We're going to see what we can do because, we want to be good neighbors. So we're here and we're listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney.
All right. That will conclude this. Okay, so let's move on to 5.4, the DPW building garage feasibility study update. So do you want to come on up, Jim? Okay, let's take a 2-minute break, let everyone head out. Tina, all I could think about when you said that was, our family has a whole.
Okay.
No, I was just gonna say that already. And I had someone. I'll get the. All right.
Oh, you're down.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello. Want to make sure Joyce is back in the meeting.
Joyce, you back?
We don't see her either.
She might have a bad internet.
Okay, she can hear us.
Okay. You can hear us. Blink twice. Just kidding.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for having us allowing this presentation for the DPW feasibility committee. I have JP and Mike here from Weston and Sampson, the consultants that are working with the committee on choosing a site. First, a little bit of nostalgia. The original town garage on Railroad Street, which is now the northerly parking lot of Most Holy Redeemer, was an old wooden building. And actually I think it had about 4 bays in it, for those of you that might remember it. And today's, the most recent 10-wheel dump truck that the town has just purchased probably would not fit in there length, width, nor height. The old was probably built right around World War II, I'm guessing, but I'm not quite sure. Anyways, that garage was replaced at about 1971. It was a 5-member committee. The committee met 10 times, visited a few garages, others in the area. That committee designed the garage themselves, drew up the plans themselves, had a PE stamp put on the plans, and the chairman of the committee was the clerk of the works on the construction job. And that's for the current town garage, and was built for about $15,000. Welcome to 2023. Anyways, the current feasibility DPW committee consists of Scott McCarthy, Gary Berg, Randy Iser, Walt Sykowski, Andy Klepacki, Tom Quillen, and myself, Jim Maximowski. And we're using Weston and Sampson as consultants to date. Our task is to determine an appropriate location for the DPW garage and appropriate features, storage, office areas, maintenance areas, and okay, that's about it. The committee did take a few basic standards that we would want to implement or not implement, as the case may be. We did not want to take prime farmland for the garage. We did not want to be invasive to neighbors. In other words, we wanted to make sure wherever this facility would be built, the neighbors were okay with it. Cost is obviously a concern. And we want to try to avoid taking anything by eminent domain. We want it to be anything that we might have to buy or take, be a friendly taking. We looked at multiple locations in town. North Hadley Fire Station, which would be a great location, except that it's not large enough for the entire DPW yard. So it would be split between North Hadley and most likely the current location. That creates a bunch of logistical issues. Plus, the neighbors approached me and told me, we don't want it here. We don't mind the fire station, but a DPW garage is basically a 24/7 during the winter operation, and it's not going to be the most welcoming facility. Well, okay, takes care of that idea. Logistically was the biggest one. To split the garage between 2 locations is just going to be very difficult to manage. There's a site on Bay Road that the town owns, and it's big enough, but there's a monster ravine in front of it that's wetlands, and we can't fill it in. So if we can't fill in that area, the site therefore becomes too small. There's a few locations on East Street that we looked at, but those are all prime farmland. And we have to buy the land. We don't own it. Overall, we worked with Weston and Sampson and some very creative designs on their part. And the existing facility will fit on the South Middle Street site, even with the sewer plant there. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Some 5 locations, Holden, Grafton, South Deerfield, Montague, and Hopkinton. 3 in the eastern part, more the central part of the state, more central part of the state than eastern, and 2 locals. And we got both good ideas and some watch outs from every one of those sites. We'll get into that a little bit too. COVID obviously has had a monster effect on prices. Between building the senior center and the library, when they were built, those were all built and designed and construction before COVID. If you were to build those sites today, you would probably at least double the cost. It is just horrendous what things have happened. So with that, I'll turn it over to JP. He's got a slide of PowerPoint that he wants to talk about a little bit about the existing site to get some ideas in. We got some pictures if you want to see more of the sites of the places that we toured. We can look at some of those if you have time and you're interested. And then we'll get into some costs, which is probably the one thing you really want to hear about or don't want to hear about. Okay, JP.
Great. We switched. Sorry,
Okay.
Good. Thanks very much. JP Parnas, architect and project manager for Weston and Sampson. And we have a brief presentation. It is an update. I think there was a presentation. I don't know how many of you were present at the time. I think a year ago last fall, which was a much earlier version of this. So we have done a lot of work with the committee. It's been great working with them. Some of this is a little bit redundant with what Jim has said, so I'll try to skip over that quickly, but next, please. It's a meeting. So previously we had just started the feasibility study. So next, please, if you can kind of scroll through these. We've been, so these are the items that we've been working on with the committee. We did programming exercise, staff interviews, site selection process, and then we went through a whole process of different concepts on that existing site. And we've also come up with what we call some opinions of cost, some potential cost for both the construction and the entirety project. Some of the concrete things we did was some initial permitting review of the existing site and then also a site survey. And then the committee did some facility tours. And then at the end, we would touch on some next steps on outreach to the public and funding mechanisms, and then sort of the design bid and build a system. And we can touch on some immediate goals near term. Next, please. So just briefly, this is a reiteration of the previous presentation from last year ago, last fall. Just the things that the DPW does in town. I'm sure you're all aware of it. Next, please. And a quick iteration of some of the photos that were presented back then of the existing facility. I don't know if you all have been down to visit it. You should. Not enough clearance to use to maintain vehicles properly, unsafe conditions. They've been in a trailer for how long now, which was supposed to be temporary. Next, please. And as well as the site structures, the fueling system is reaching its end of life. And the salt shed is a very old version of a salt shed that really doesn't work for modern deliveries anymore. Next, please. So the first step we did was the staff interviews and programming. We understood their operations, went through all of their staff, came up with what we call space needs analysis. That's okay. I can keep going. This is a lot of numbers. So this is good. For each of the different types of the building, came up with generic plans of each of those to understand those spaces and what size of those spaces we would need. The goal of which would be to come to an understanding of what the whole footprint of a new facility would be. You can keep skipping through. Thank you. Oh, did it freeze? Uh-oh. Oh, sorry. Too many animations.
Get it back. They have to be lost.
No problem. Um, so we looked at all the different spaces, administration, and support areas, employee facilities, shop spaces, and then finally came up with a proposed set of square foot numbers to give us a total footprint. The goal of this is to start looking at sites. So if we go next, please, as Jim suggested, we started with a list of, I think, about 14, next, please, sites that we've initially analyzed for what we call fatal flaw analysis. Next, please. And whittled that list down to 8 potential sites. And we look both at public and privately owned sites. Next, please. And, you know, oh boy. Sorry about that. Too many animations.
Alex is pulling that back.
Yes.
Would we be able to get a copy of your presentation?
Surely.
That'd be great. You can email it to us
Yeah,
afterwards.
absolutely.
Now.
Yeah, he's got a little pen drive, but I sent you a PDF with the same word on.
No, it's one. So.
You want to pull up the PDF version?
The song.
PDF. Oh. It is on there, actually. If that would. It's in that, it's in there, yeah. If you think it's going to keep crashing, we can just use the PDF. Sure. Maybe.
So it's on the same.
What's that? Very hard. No. Sorry.
Isn't that what we wanted for the last 6 months?
Oh. There you go. So this is this the PDF?
No.
Oh, okay. Let me see if this works. Cool. So sorry about that. We did bring it down to about, I think, 6 sites that we analyzed in greater detail with the committee. I went through a little ahead of yourself, but anyway, we went through a sort of a scoring process with the committee. And then as Jim alluded to, you know, really the main objectives were to find a spot that will not cost additional money to purchase, and that it will be an acceptable spot for community. Keeping it in the existing location certainly made the most in that kind of thing. The site that we would proceed with next week. Next, please. One more time. Thank you. So just a quick note on what is there. The existing, obviously the existing BBLE garage. The water treatment plant is at the back of the site and uses both the garage and a fair amount of space there as well. There's an existing salt shed and lean-to garage. There are other environmental and other constraints on the site as well. There's riverfront from both sides. There are protected species areas at the back of the site that we have to be careful with. There's also the existing incoming sewer line and the outgoing outfall, sewer outfall after treatment, both of which potentially be moved or not moved. We're looking at those options. And then there's also existing fuel, which I think is not pointed out here. And just below the garage. Next, please. And next, so we went through a bunch of different iterations of plans, including consolidating more of a consolidated building, less of a consolidated building, reusing the existing building as much as possible, demolishing the existing building. So we looked at a number of different iterations. This is the current plan that we worked with the committee to come up with, which includes a fairly consolidated, efficient, small DPW facility that includes a vehicle garage, vehicle maintenance bays, a new wash bay, and because of the constraints of the site, a 2-story administration and staff support building. That's the yellow there. Currently, we are proposing to simply reuse the existing building as is without touching it, without spending any money on it. It's in reasonable shape enough to just reuse as storage and as workshop space. Next, please. And so on to cost. We initially looked at 3 different options. As I mentioned, one was completely new construction, tearing down the old building. One is a reduced program and renovating the existing building. And was not touching the building and having a reduced program. In discussions and going through this and reviewing it with the committee, they determined that, and especially after touring buildings and seeing how much space DPWs really need, they determined that the reduced program didn't make any sense. And so go next, please. We had a sort of one more concept 3B, which took the idea of the full program, but untouched, but leaving the existing building untouched. So we came up with a construction cost estimate of about $24 million and a full project cost of close to $30 million. And that includes escalation for 2 years, as well as design contingencies. At this level of design, it's very conceptual. So it's basically square foot costs. And next, please. So just briefly on sort of some of the next steps, we've done a lot of work with municipalities in helping them do outreach to the public, whether it's through public meetings. Next, please. Open houses, touch a truck events at the DPW, get people down there. Next, please. Pamphlets and posters. Next, please. And then also video and social media, I think, has been very successful. We've had DPW directors doing videos, walking through the existing facilities, getting videos of work DPW does. It's great, a way to get people's attention. Next, please. And then also social media, Facebook and Twitter presence is also very helpful to get the word out there. Next, please. Funding, obviously, that's up to you guys and the town. We would encourage that further design is proceeded with in order to get a more accurate cost estimate and reduce those overall design contingencies. Trying to take into account the inflation costs, and that getting a handle on that is very difficult. We're including, I think, in those numbers of something like 14% over 2 years. So, what the market does in 2 to 3 years, we don't know. And then the process of the design process versus the cost estimate, and whether you procure money based on cost estimate or procure money based on an actual bid and put the project out to bid. There's a couple of different strategies for that as well. Next, please. The design and bid and construction process, estimated around 12 months of work, and then a 2-month bidding process. Next, please. And construction for that kind of building is probably 14 to 18 months. We've seen construction durations get longer because of procurement time these days. So we'd rather give them enough time to get it done without delaying. Some immediate things that we discussed with the committee on looking at the existing site. proceeding with some geotechnical investigations. Oop, thank you. One back, thanks. Looking at potential environmental impacts, whether it's the permitting particularly. And proceeding with the design otherwise. This is sort of some of the immediate things.
Thank you. Can I ask a question just about the site location? And it certainly, you know, on the outside of the process makes an awful lot of sense to me that we would want to keep it where it is. But any concerns at all about the flood, newly designated flood areas? I mean, are we at risk there?
Where this is built, it's above the flood zone.
It is, okay.
Yeah, there is one thing that's this facility will force it, but it needs to be done whether the facility is built or not. In that the water line from intersection of Bay Road to South Middle Street is inadequate. It's an old line. It even though it's what it is, it's one of the original water lines, and it will need to be replaced with a new water line. This building needs to be sprinklered. We do not have the capacity to sprinkler the building with the existing water line, and the water flow and service for the home is not too bad right now, but it's going to continue to get worse, and it will need to be replaced. And we've got a ballpark price of about $750,000. It's not included in this project because that's kind of more of a town need as opposed to just a water or DPW need to do that. But that's going to have to be done whether or not the facility's built or anyways.
So I was having trouble seeing your images, but the water treatment plant remains the same?
Yes, yeah, that'll stay right there. That's based a lot on our Hope wistful tie-in to the Amherst system. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will be surrounding the sewer plant with various things. For the salt shed will need to be replaced. In fact, we've got Alex, do you have the pictures that I've got? Yeah. Quickly go through a few of those just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that what the facility could look like, or some of the options, maybe is a better way to say it.
1 second.
Yeah. So obviously the DPW committee, our committee is recommending the South Middle Street site to stay there. No additional land will need to be repurchased. It fits the 2-story office building. We actually toured one site that did have a 2-story office building. The offices are on the 2nd floor and the employee areas are on the 1st floor. And one of the reasons for that is typically the DPW employees, to be honest, have dirty feet. And dragging them upstairs through an elevator up the stairs makes the 2nd floor much more area to clean. Whereas if they come in right out of the shop, if you would, and right into their employee area, that area gets dirty, but it's a lot less area to clean. And the people come in, the general public and the office people come in the entrance, go up the stairs, elevator, whatever they might need. And the office area on the 2nd floor is kept much cleaner and neater and much more presentable. Just quickly, this is the first site we toured. Holden, probably the one of the largest sites we toured. The garage is well, we'll see. Next one. That's they have a combined. Okay. They have a combined sewer and water lab like this. They do a lot of their own testing right on site. Next. That's a picture of their storage area. A lot of the garages we visited had mezzanines where they could put equipment and parts and stuff like that above and get them, visually more storage area because of the high ceilings. Next. It just trucks come in, there's a garage door at each end. They come in, they park on the side of the road, or straight park, or whatever the case may be. Next. It's just a picture of the lubrications. Where a lot of these places had central lubrication systems. I won't get into a lot of that, but one of the good points of that is it's easy to access. One of the bad points is you are limited to, in that case, they have 6 or 7 lines. Every time a new model year comes out, they get new model trucks. Now this company or this Ford GM Freightliner, whatever it may be, not have the planetary lubricants. And when I said seven lubricants, you have 12, so you never have enough drops. And you still end up with a carb of some sort. Next. Almost every mini shop, not every mini shop indeed has its own overhead bridge crane, which makes a lot of things much more efficient and safer for the maintenance people. Next. That is an in-floor 80,000 pound lift. It will pick up, excuse me, any vehicle that the town might have. In fact, 80,000 pounds will pick up even a tractor trailer. It's not long enough, but it'll pick up any dump truck, any fire truck that the town has or could even get in the future. Next. That's a salt shed. That's an interesting salt shed in this location in the right side, somehow the way it's built, even though this facility is about 4 years old, they can't use the salt shed because the water goes underneath the concrete blocks and goes into the storage shed, and they have puddles of water inside the storage shed. They haven't been able to fix that yet. We'll see a couple of, I think we're going to pick for that next. I guess that's a wash bay. The trucks come in through that door, come towards us, and those, next picture. Those nozzles, there's a nozzles there, and the nozzle right near us. And in the floor, there's now going to shoot up and watch the truck in the side, and it's at high pressure, and it's designed to rock the salt and snow off in the winter. Next. Main storage area, just the main area. Next. That's the box that there's a bunch of ways of building these storage sheds. Sometimes they use precast concrete blocks. Sometimes you'll see some that have just plywood. Sometimes there's fiber. Sometimes there's metal, different plastics. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it. Next. This particular facility had the room, they have a big overhang on one side of their garage, and they store all this winter equipment or off-season equipment inside underneath. Keep it out of the weather, which is very nice. We don't have that luxury. We don't have enough room. This was the only facility that had that. Next. Almost every facility we had a washer and dryer for the people to wash their clothes. One facility that had bunk beds. Next. Lockers. Next. Women's kitchen, kitchenette, kitchen, break area meeting. Office area. Next. It's a main meeting for the office people. Next. That's the office itself. Some people had low cubicles, some had high. It's really, to the facility want. Next. And Hopkinton. And we can go through all of these. They're all very similar. One of the things that each facility, we learned something good and bad. The Grafton was a unique facility, and it was built no town water, no town sewer, and no gas. So they have propane tanks, 5 1,000-gallon propane tanks. Their garage is a forced hot air system, and the way they have it designed, it's like the heat is forced hot air comes down, and they have the exhaust right next to it to pull the exhaust fumes away. So the heat comes out, and when the doors are open, the exhaust, if the trucks are running, everything gets sucked right out. They were giving us a cost, but during the 12 days of the winter, they fill these tanks every 2 weeks, 5 1,000-gallon tanks. And because of that's mainly because of the heating system. In comparison, the Montague facility has in-floor radiant heat. All the heat comes up to the floor is heated and it heats the building that way. Heated with oil. very similar in size to Grafton. They heat their entire facility for the winter with 1,000 gallons. Which in winter. This other place uses about 4,000 gallons a month. So it's the inflow heating is not cheap. It's more expensive than we ever had a forest hot air. But in the long term, there's a lot of things that we saw. You can pay me now or forever pay me the rest of your life. And we're now looking for a podcast, we're looking for a Cadillac, we're looking for a board. Yeah, but the price is pricey, no doubt about it. And I think it'll be whatever we can get out of it. And we want to do a good job for the town and build an efficient facility, not necessarily the cheapest. Questions? Next thing that the committee would recommend, going for the hard box, I think is not the idea, but we would like to recommend that for the annual, these prices that you've got are based on a 2025 construction time. They're not today's construction, they're inflating accordingly. So
We're using like 5% a year for inflation.
More is it?
Losing 14% for the 2 years.
Yeah. And if, some prices are coming down right now, but it's anybody's guess what it's going to be in 2 years. But we would recommend that we go for the cost of the annual 2024 town meeting. We get the money to design this facility. And then with that, we could go out and bid. Once you go out to bid, then you could ask for the money. I think that would be the order. And we're also investigating, there's all kinds of talk in the state legislature of getting a similar to a school grant, DPW grants. Will that happen? Well, I sure hope so.
They're pushing for it in
Yeah,
there's municipal buildings that aren't a library and a school.
right. So,
So Jim, are we looking at being able to, I know you're going to keep the old building. Are we going to be able to have a facility or a garage to maintain our other new trucks and things that we're buying? Is there going to be something for where they can park also inside for the winters and things?
When we take out the fuel island, we're going to find some way to maybe for that one season by gas and diesel fuel at regular stations. And salt shed, we could probably look at the salt shed. But the fuel islands are probably the most inconvenient. Since we're going to keep the old, we will still have the free use of the old garage. For the new one is built, and that will just be used simply for storage.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to use the use of the old garage even with the new construction. There will be some inconvenience without a doubt. You're going to have a lot of construction going on, so they have to be careful of traffic in this area.
Yeah, even if it's something that can make it so that they can drive under there and have some type of covering for it. It's certainly a lot better than nothing than, what they have right now. So
yeah,
some type of protection for sure.
Yeah, when this is all said and done, then between the old facility and the new facility, there should be virtually nothing outside.
Okay, that sounds good, because that's, if we're going to be putting, to me, this kind of money into a facility, we should be able to protect the new equipment that we've been investing in as a town. That's really important for us to do.
That last thing, but one of the big things was the drive through Roxbury. I mean, we use the trucks now, but this would be, we're spending thousands of dollars on new trucks. And it's still, if they cost what they cost, and we certainly want to maintain them, but keep them around for as long as we can.
And to that end, and maybe this is more for Scott, but to get actual data points from municipalities who built these new buildings as a proof of concept that, you know, the equipment is indeed lasting longer and all of that. I mean, any information we can get for town meeting of school.
What about the money to ensure that? So that.
The key thing with this timing is that it's much, your chance of us being successful in getting grants or even getting funding from, it's not complete. Right, is that I'm already this key. This part of the space, doing the design and what's also part of it is designated OPM is key for us to be able to see the so the timing is really crucial. But I just want to address Joy's and about this. But I'd say sitting into all of this great committee, the talent is incredible. I would say it's the number one issue that they're most concerned about is all of the new trucks that they've got and to be able to maintain where we can't really clean waiting. Yes, I just wanted to reassure Joy staff has been made over and over again is maintain their vehicles.
Yeah. If I can just jump in, I did skip over a little bit fairly quickly the actual components of the proposed building, but it would include a large vehicle garage that would be kept, at 50 degrees to store most of the vehicles. And then also having 4 or 5 maintenance bays to be able to maintain those vehicles in a proper, safe manner. And then, as Jim pointed out, the wash bay as well is a crucial component to keeping those vehicles longer.
Yeah, we saw a range. Only the first garage that we visited had the actual full service underneath wash, high pressure side washes, everything else. The other facilities had some of the parts for it, but they weren't all complete. And the Grafton facility said, "Oh, we don't need all that stuff. We just use a garden hose." But that's also the one facility that doesn't have town water. So, I mean, when you look at a lot of the things that were different facilities said, well, I don't have town water. Well, I'm not going to be using a machine that pressurizes 1,500 PSI of water and probably pumps out 5 gallons a minute because my well can only handle 7 gallons a minute. And they have an in-ground cistern for this. They do have a sprinkler system, but they have a monster in-ground cistern to store the water in case of a fire. So, you listen to different facilities and you analyze things of why they did this or why they didn't do this. And there's a lot of good reasons why some do and some don't. But every one of them to a T says, there's things you can add afterwards, but if you're going to build a facility, build it the size you need to begin with. You can add a lot of these little cutesy things afterwards. You can add the lift, you can add the wash, you can do this, you can do that. But to build construction, build it the right size from the get-go, because I think it was it Grafton? They didn't build the garage size they wanted, and they wanted to add like 3,000 square feet during the construction phase. They thought they had the money. Well, the price came in. I think the facility was, for the price to add that small amount of money was about 50% the price of the whole project, because they just added a big cost to it. And they didn't do it because it was too expensive. They said, if we had bid this at the get-go, it was going to be like $200,000. By the time they got around to doing it, it was like $2 million. And it wasn't it's just there was an add-on. That's what it came down to be. So
But you know, we've done that in the past, Jim, on other buildings.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do.
Yes, exactly.
If we want to bring the feasibility study to fall town meeting and not wait until annual town meeting, is that even possible, given your timeline or no?
If you wanted to request the money at the fall town meeting,
For the feasibility study?
I mean, from
The feasibility study or for plans?
for the plan you're talking, for the design plan, for the design. There's, you certainly could. Okay, yeah, but I was just thinking with everything you've got in a fall town meeting, my personal opinion might be too much for the people to swallow, but if the select board thinks that that's a good idea, then so be it. That's okay. We could certainly the committee could accommodate that.
That's all I was asking.
What we talked about earlier is the education is going to be huge.
Yeah.
It's going to be more than really
Yeah.
wants to really get as much civic engagement as we can for buying. Its success is better for the.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a lot of education that'll be needed to the education of the townspeople to understand why this is really necessary and to get this through. We could probably meet the fall town meeting, but the spring might give us a little more time. But if we were told that you want to put in a fall town meeting, we would bust our humps to get the education out there in the next 5 months.
Total ballpark, do you have a sense of what that design ask might be?
The design cost, about $2.5 million.
Plus the OPM.
Yeah.
You have to have the OPM, you have to start with the design.
Yep.
So, I can see also to bring in capital plans, we are have capital to do going and getting talk with the finance manager. We have to listen as well, so. We need to be. I do think that education, but it's just this side.
Yeah. This is pricing.
I agree with the education piece, but I also think that perhaps Molly was working on the inflation piece and another. Yeah, but if we could start 6 months earlier instead of 6 months later, we'd save down the labor.
We try to switch it and educate the public for buying such a large project.
And again, it's not anything anybody hasn't realized that this is what we have need. We have gone very strategically on the buildings that we needed. And the DPW has always been on the bottom, but we now had moved it to the top and that was our priority. So, everybody knows it's coming down the pipeline here. And I think, you gentlemen have done a great job in presenting what you brought to us tonight. And certainly we know as a board and as citizens ourselves that this is something that we need to get done, period.
So we start having open houses with cookies.
Touch it.
That is something that every building that we went to has done something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They had literally milk and cookies, comes to your facility and have that.
People come from.
It was a show and tell. And they had similar stuff to that.
So I guess we would have to, the committee, we would have to put something together, some kind of a board, slideshow, whatever you want to call it, so that if we had cookies and milk, that people would have something to look at to say, okay, this is what we've got, this is what we're.
Well, something like that, and something like that, we could do it as part of the show and tell at the facility, but something like that could be put onto our TV channel, local public TV, so that people could, essentially look at it at their leisure.
Yeah. And I think, I understand what you're saying, Carolyn, but the problem is that you can only reach so many people. There's people that are just not going to be interested until they hear town meeting is coming in, they want to spend $30 million, then they'll care. But up until that point, it won't matter. The ones that are going to be interested will be interested as soon as we publish something that is happening.
Well, when this hits the newspaper and we're thinking about spending $30 million and Scott Mersbeck puts it in the paper, I think, we might get a few eyebrows raised, and I think that things might get going. I might be retired. I'm heading that way, and I'll make your cookies for you, Jim.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
This is
Yes,
great.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. If Tim wants to come up for the municipal building committee update.
Hit the top twice. You can go.
Come on up.
Just have a slideshow.
No.
That's why we turned over.
Okay. Thank you for, give me a minute. I can go take a couple of quick shots. Thanks for giving us the time and opportunity to get you up to speed on what the latest is with Goodwin. Unfortunately, it's been a very long process, well over 4.5 years. And the last time that we went out to bid for the electrical work and some other work, we unfortunately did not get anything back. And there was reasons for that. Unfortunately, we all agree that the specs that were written were not the best. There was some questions in regards to that. But be as it may, we got together and talked with the town administrator and saying, how should we go forward with this building? For our oldest buildings, it is in the best shape. It really is. It can be utilized. Remember, we wanted to get something expedited so we could get a couple of the departments in and do something quick. And that's what we were trying to do. But time has gone by 4.5 years and we're still at ground zero. What we would like to do, and we sat down with the town administrator, talked this thing through. We went back to a couple of meetings with us, voted for this. It was a unanimous vote, went back to the town administrator, and again, all in agreement that what we'd like to do is pull back, regroup, and put the entire project out as one project. We were before splitting it up. Phase one was renovating the existing building, and primarily that was for the electrical to get that up to some type of code standard. And then phase two was the addition where the elevator and the new bathrooms would be and new stairs. So what we'd like to do is take what we have, which is a good design, get help from going out to bid and get somebody on board, an architect, to review the entire project. Look at the building as it is now, possibly adding some stuff in that we believe that should be added into the building, i.e. like fixing some of the cracks up on the second floor, walls, looking at the windows, possibly changing those over, at least getting them painted. But there's things that we need to look at and see what we should do. But we have the $25,000 still for phase two design work. We're anticipating we need another 10,000, which we probably can take from the 200,000 that are sitting from phase one. We have the money, but what we'd like to do is combine some money together, go out to bid to get the architect to review everything and put a better package together and go back out.
So the package would be electrical, access elevator in the back, things with the windows and the walls, and
Go through the entire building.
the
Yeah.
whole building. basically.
Yes.
So are you going to specify, or the architect's going to come through and look at it and make choices?
We're going to certainly get an architect to give us his opinions on what's needed.
Okay.
And we can use some of the architect that we've had has allowed us to use some of his work going forward and to work with whoever we decide to.
And we have a good base. We have a good design for the addition. We have a lot of good electrical, almost, I would say 90% of it complete for both phases. But unfortunately for us, as you know, prices have gone through the roof. We had to keep on pulling back, taking thing out, and it just fell apart. It really did. And it's unfortunate where we are right now, but we all kind of agree it's better to do this as one project.
And we need to go back, obviously, to CPA to get them to approve the recent use of fund.
Can somebody just remind, just because tripping down memory lane here with you, Tim, because I was on the select board, left and came back again, and we're still talking about this. So the $200,000, the $25,000, Larry Tuttle, this is all running through my head. Like, what money do we have still out there that's allocated to?
We had got approved like $220 some dollars to do the work on phase one, which is the original building.
Where was that money from?
CPA.
CPA. That's
3 years ago?
Probably
Four?
Over 4 years ago.
And that's still hanging out there?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we had that.
They haven't asked for it back, yeah.
Well, we've slowly been making, we have to give them an update every year.
Okay.
What we're doing.
Yeah. And the $25,000 was appropriated to do the design.
Design, okay, yep.
Okay.
And that's still there too.
Yes, that is still there too. So what we'd like to do is take whatever we need to pay for an architect to come in, advise us what to do, get specs in a lot better format as a one package and get it out as one package, one design, one renovation.
Okay.
Get this thing building.
Did you say that the design would cost more than the $25,000?
Yes.
Yes, we believe now with the way the costs are, we're projecting and we talked to the town administrator about it. But our estimate is probably 35,000. So we're only going to take probably 10,000 to 200,000, send the rest back to CPA, have the 35 or whatever it's going to be. It's going to be around that number.
So my question is, what's the $200,000 from the CPA earmarked for? And can you take 10,000 of that legitimately?
Yes.
And use it towards the
That's
design?
why we have to go back and see. if they-
They're looking permission since that you appoint them to go back to CPA to ask to make those switches.
We did a couple years ago, go back to them and say, can we take some of that 220,000 and use that for design work? Because we ran out of money for the architect. And that's unfortunately, that's how we started skimping and we should.
All right, well, I'm in favor of your proposal.
Yeah. Yep, I think putting it all together as one project makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
And do you know when CPA's meeting next, or?
They aren't scheduled till August, so
Yeah.
I think once you guys do a request, whether they meet.
Yeah, we
probably have a
actually met
for
with
you.
some of the representatives from CPA when we started going out with this bid the last time. And so we've been talking to them.
And I already reached out to the chair and say, hey, this is what our thought process is. Do you have any objections if we follow through with this? And they said, no, they understood where we were at, but we do need to get consensus through CPA, but I think we'll have it. We're not talking about a lot of money at all.
No, especially if they're gonna get
Yeah.
the balance
Right.
back.
Yeah, we're basing our figures on the percentage they were talking about.
Yeah.
DPW.
Okay,
sounds good to me.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sorry you had to wait all night.
I warned them.
Uh,
Is there any other items that are not anticipated 48 hours in advance?
Or not be.
Good with that, moving on.
I want to take that out as well.
Yeah, that causes us some trouble, some people sometimes. Do you have a administrative report?
Very short, as you know, Jennifer's still home recovering from a couple weeks ago. So thank you to Jane for volunteering and helping out, answering the phones and greeting the public for me. But it's been, doing 2 offices. And so we did have 8 bidders, 8 companies submit, not submit, but take out bids for the solar. Didn't have anybody show up at the walkthrough. That's not that unusual. It's kind of a standard type of thing. So I'm not nervous yet, but again, Jane and Gary were present today to see if anybody would show up. So we're hopeful that we'll get some bid documents out. We were, I think I may have mentioned it a few months ago that we were having Northampton, who does our bidding to get their channel markers maintained on the river. We got a really high bid that was none of the communities could afford. It's a kind of a mutual agreement. Nobody could afford, but we did finally get a bid back that is much more manageable. It's just slightly higher than what we budgeted for, but I talked with Linda and we'll be able to do that. But that was a really important thing. It had already gone up to our legislators and they were very concerned with those channel markers. So I want to reassure the public that those channel markers are going to get maintained, back, replaced when they need it to be. And that is it.
And just to let people know when you're not going to be there. You need to say, or just us.
For me, for my vacation?
Yeah, we want to make sure you're going to take your vacation.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure you're asking Joyce.
She wants you to let people know when you're not going to be in office.
I will be gone this Friday, coming back late Tuesday.
Not long to take the whole damn week.
Sometime the following week.
And Joyce will pay you.
Okay.
She doesn't take enough time off, Randy.
Thanks, Joyce.
All right, Carolyn.
Are there any items for future discussion?
I think we need to put the use of the common.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a note. Yep. We have 2 things that are pending.
Yeah,
So
and I
I'll
think
keep
we
you
should
posted.
also strategize about now that we heard from the DPW committee, I think we do need to have a broader discussion about how to present that to the town.
Sounds good.
There were some complaints, and I don't know if that's something that we can even talk about or something we can do for the Hockenham cemetery.
So I think I've had one email. Again, we can't really have too much discussion, but you're not going to be deliberating on this right now. This is purely informational. So yes, there has been some concerns and I can let you know when it's appropriate how we're addressing it.
Okay.
Because it may be an executive session discussion.
Okay. Anything else to be added on the next agenda? I believe the next agenda, we adding, so like the last meeting was the Young Men's Club, this meeting is
The continuance of the hearing.
continuing
July.
hearing.
Continuance of the
Alcohol portion of, just continuance of the alcohol hearing. On the next agenda.
And everything else that shows up.
Yeah, well, I checked the drafts, because sometimes if there's like stuff, it'll be on the drafts, but there wasn't anything yet. Okay, any announcements? Any liaison reports?
No.
No.
No,
Announcements?
no.
I've got one. So condolences to the family of Allison Curran, who recently passed. Her sister Laura Ewald lives here in town, longtime Hadley resident. And she leaves behind her 2 sons, Alex and Michael, both relatively recent graduates of Hopkins Academy.
So can I get a motion to adjourn to move into executive session?
No.
No.
That was a joke.
Down over there.
So moved.
I'd like to make a motion that we moved into executive session for the purpose, per Mass General Law Code, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, for the purposes of discussing strategy with respect to litigation, tax title unknown owners, for the parcel Hadley Assessors Map 3, parcels 22 and 22C. If the chair so declares, that discussing it in open session might be detrimental to the bargaining position of the town, not to reconvene in open session.
She nailed it.
Roll call vote?
We're doing it. Yeah, roll call vote.
Yeah.
Persons.
He said yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's right.
Chunglo. That was Joyce Dana.
Yes.
Yes. Kaiser.
Yes.
Keegan.
Yes.
So how do I get back into this, Carolyn?
Just stay.
Yeah. Susan.
So you're gonna, yeah, Susan, Dan, and Joyce. You can keep,
Susan, Dan, stay, and Joyce.
We're doing it here.
right,
Okay.
but you're just, as you go over, you just gotta.
I went to.
So moved.
So.
We're going into, oh, you, that's right, you haven't been executive, we moved to executive session.
Yes.
Alex sets us up and